Hey guys, welcome to Pop Culture Curiosities, where Gabe and I get together and tell each other stories from pop culture, and we often talk about our own set experiences. Today we're really talking about something not personal, but like this is probably the most personally impactful to us.
Yes.
Talking about the strike, the dual SAG-WGA strike. That's currently, as of right now, it is September 16th as we film this 2023. The year of our Lord, of course, being, I don't know, Dolly Parton?
Dolly Parton will always be the Lord. Praise be to she, 9 to 5.
I started that joke without knowing how it was ending, so I was just like, well, you know.
Dolly, you can never go wrong with Dolly Parton.
Yeah. Tomorrow, Dolly Parton just does something horrible, and we're just like, no!
Spencer's just going to have to cut it all out.
No, but the strike started... Well, I have notes.
I know the writer's strike happened May 2nd
May
because
2nd.
That was my birthday.
Your birthday, and also, less important than your birthday, but it's also the channel's anniversary, so it was like, yay, channel anniversary!
Happy birthday to the channel.
Content has stopped being made because people can't get a fair deal. Happy anniversary, channel.
And we support the strike.
We do.
Pay your people.
We do. No, it's very necessary. It's also very, obviously strikes are never like fun. It's like not like, woohoo, we're on strike, but they're always necessary. So I took some notes of dates of things. So like you said, the writers, the WGA, the Writers Guild of America, went on strike May 2nd. And the Screen Actors Guild, or SAG, joined in on the strike on July 14th. So we just passed 2 months of us being pulled into the strike, meaning we're not working. This channel is not covering any struck media. Which is honestly, it's been not difficult to find things that are not struck media. We've been doing an Around the World series, which has been pretty fun.
Even Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey.
Even that one. God, why? Y'all.
I'm sorry.
Blood and Honey is the worst slasher movie I've ever seen. It's like not even like, well, it's funny bad, but it's also just like incredibly boring. It's just like nothing happens. Winnie the Pooh tore a girl's shirt off and smashed her head in against a wall. Nothing happens. Now they're killing somebody in a pool. It's just like, Piglet, no.
Piglet, why?
Like Spencer pointed out, because Spencer edited the video that I did on Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, if you don't know what I'm talking about. Winnie the Pooh horror movie. Winnie the Pooh's in the public domain. It's a British independent film, so it's, by all accounts that I'm aware of, doubly safe from the strike. So we talked about that. Spencer pointed out that the most cursed line that he's ever heard, not to mention just in that movie, was Christopher Robin going, "Piglet, you have to help me. Pooh Bear just killed my wife."
And I'm sure it was greatly acted by the handsome actor. Her words.
He tried.
But yeah.
He did what he could. To be fair to him, they didn't really give him much of a script to work with.
Oh.
I don't know how you say Winnie the Pooh just killed my wife in a way that doesn't sound silly.
He could have just been like, he killed my wife. That could have, but I'm sure Pooh killed Winnie killed. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a whole other story. Anybody from Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey wants to come and give an interview? Hit me up. My email's in the description. But yeah, today, since we're 2 months into us being on strike and math, May, June, July, August, 4.5 months into the writers being on strike, I figured it was a good idea for us to, since we were talking about like, well, what should we talk about on the podcast while we can't talk about Struck Media? I figured we might as well just talk about the strike.
Yeah.
Because there is like a lot, it is really confusing sometimes because there's two different unions on strike and they both have different rules. So there's like what's okay and what's not okay is difficult. And I talked about it briefly in a video. Well, not brief. I talked about it a little bit in a video. And people appreciated having like somewhere to like give out the information that is known to the best of our ability. So I figured you and I could probably do that better together and actually like talking about like the whole thing. So we're gonna have to go back. Flash warning.
We're going back.
We got to go back to 2007 to really understand what's going on now. Whoa, we're going back to 2007. Woo!
Whoa, wasn't there a drought during that time?
I think so. All I remember really is that the Jonas Brothers were at the height of popularity. Wait, no, we're already there.
We went too far back. We're in the 60s when this happened before.
Oh yeah. So the first, let me go back. So SAG was last on strike in 2000 over commercial rights, but hasn't struck against the big film and TV studios since 1980. And the last time both SAG and the WGA, who are both the unions that are on strike right now, it was 1960 the last time they were dual striking. So like this is like truly historic for a lot of reasons. The first being just how long it's been since we've had to deal with this strike. And then WGA, the Writers Guild, they obviously, I don't want to say most famously, but it's the most referenced previous strike because it was the most recent strike since before this. They went on strike in the 2007-2008 Writers Guild strike, which lasted until, I'm looking at my notes, it lasted from November 5th, 2007 to February 12th, 2008. So we're already longer. We've already been on strike longer this time, or they have.
Yeah.
So this, pay your writers.
Actors, I'm just.
They've paid like the unions. We'll get into it, but like they could have saved themselves so much time and money by just agreeing to the not at all unreasonable demands.
Yeah, I remember seeing the numbers, but I'm sure you have them in there, so I don't want to like jump ahead.
Yeah, I'll try to stay organized. Some of this is going to be, when it comes to not naming actual like dates and numbers and things, I went lighter on those notes because we're living it every single day. So I was like, I think we're good, but like for dates and things, I wanted to make sure I had everything written down. So, sorry, Spencer. So the current dual strike has effectively shut down pretty much all TV and film in America, as well as deeming most American TV and film as struck work. Meaning actors are not allowed to, SAG actors or anybody who wants to be SAG eligible is not allowed to take work from any struck companies. They can't work on any productions, and they can't promote. The promoting of companies really seems to be the thing that's catching some people up. We'll get into it. But there are some exceptions to the current strike. So to keep everything as straightforward as possible, the strike is specifically the unions against the AMPTP, which I believe stands for the American Motion Picture and Television Producers. Is that, what's the P stand for?
Producers.
AMPTP. Basically, the group that represents most major film companies. So like Disney, Netflix, Warner Brothers, like the streaming companies are also included in this.
Bob Iger is one of the notable.
Bob Iger is
Disney
the big bad guy, but they're all, like many times with corporations being sketchy, Disney is always at the forefront because they're the biggest and most visible. But there's also all these other CEOs that are just as shady, but Disney always is just like, we'll be the shadiest for everybody.
No, that's a character from another show that anyway. And that just reminds me of when during the after party podcast, Disney notoriously didn't like unions, and it's just like, and we're still keeping that tradition today, it seems. I don't know. Even though there are unions, but it's just you don't really support them, and it's just like, just pay your workers. But yeah.
So it's the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers. Okay. So just wanted to make sure that was straight before somebody was like, that's wrong. And I'm like, I'm sorry.
Everything is discredited because you got the
Yes.
AMPTP wrong.
Don't listen to anything I said. Keep talking about. I was at con, and I think I told you this. I was in the Sky Bridge, and it was like a line, so I was stuck there, and there were these 3 drunk women around me that were talking about how the strike is stupid, and, quote, all of us striking are just a bunch of whiny little bitches, and I was just like... I told John, our one of our roommates at con, and he was like, and you abstained from punching them out? And I was like, it would have caused a longer line. No, just kidding. Violence is never the answer. But also, I was just, everybody around me too was just like, we were all like giving them the side eye and they were too drunk to care. But it was just like, ugh. It's important to note before we go any further, a lot of people act like the strike is unnecessary because everybody in Hollywood is rich and, they're all just complaining and asking for too much and all this stuff, which is what the big corporations want you to think. Yeah. But truth be told, the vast majority of people, I just hit the microphone, I'm so sorry, Spencer. The vast majority of people who are in SAG, in WGA, especially when it comes to writers, a very small percentage of them are actually like the big famous rich people that we know of. And even then, there's still a reason for those people to care about the strike because it's not just about wages, it's about like fair working conditions, and it's about AI, AI is a big thing. So like, so people think before we jump for any further ahead, people think that like the strike is just a bunch of rich people complaining, but it's actually like a really like severe, like necessary workers' strike. And so as much as it sucks, it's important to support it. And also before we go any further, people seem to think like that they have to like boycott certain things. That's not what anybody's asking for. And in fact, people don't want you to stop watching things because they don't want to devalue the art that they're saying, hey, look how important it is that we stand up for like not putting AI in this, not treating people unfairly to make this like, so you can stream, you can watch, you can do whatever, anything you want. It's just for the people like us who are maybe have a platform to talk about it and are in the industry, we just can't promote it. So yeah, that's different. Like you won't hear me making videos on things like the new Haunted Mansion movie until the strike is over, which sucks because I really want to talk about it. I talked about the original one. But you can watch, and I'm going to watch it when it comes to streaming. That's all fair and good. Nobody has a problem with that. So I thought that could be one thing that could be cleared up right away. Another thing that I saw that people seem to be confused about is like cons, because like we just got back from Dragon Con. Actors were at con. Like cons are not struck work. Yes. You donated blood and plasma, didn't you?
Or just blood. Oh, or just blood. Red body juices.
Oh, just
red body juices. Sorry for not donating more, everybody.
No. I did not actually donate blood because I threw up the last time I donated blood, and I was like, I'm afraid.
Oh no.
I will donate blood in the future. I just was afraid to do it at con. We're 70,000 people. There were over 70,000 people at con this year. The numbers came out.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And over 8,100 people donated blood, and we raised over $200,000 for Children Cure Cancer. So.
And
productive
Dragon
con, everybody.
Matched 125,000.
Nice.
Up to if people donate up to 125,000, Dragon Con would pledge that same amount.
Nice. So productive con all around.
Yay.
But yeah, actors are allowed to do like public appearances at cons and things like that. They just can't promote any struck work. So like there were signs up at con. I'm sure there'll be signs up at all of the San Diego and New York Comic Con. It's like, please don't ask them about their work. Just because they can't answer you. Also, they can do panels. They just also can't talk about their work. So people were asking the funniest questions at Dragon Con because they couldn't ask about the work.
And what was really smart that Dragon Con did was instead of people going up to a microphone and having like someone there be like, what's your question and whatnot, they had it to where you joined the Dragon Con Discord and you could find the room which the panel is taking place, like the Marriott Atrium Ballroom or the Hyatt Centennial 2 and 3, and you find it and you can ask your questions there, so the panelists can kind of scroll through and ask questions. So
Yeah.
it kind of, and it also helps where people aren't like running up and
It
all
streamlines
that.
things a lot, and it
Yeah.
also keeps from inappropriate questions being asked, because there's
Yeah.
always like one person at the panel that's just like, what, you don't know. You can't ask somebody that.
I remember there was a director who was going through some controversy, and we were told, do not ask about this director. And someone's like, what are your thoughts about this director in this situation? And it's just like,
and they try to like ask you beforehand, like, what's your question, but people take the mic and just ask whatever. People ask like if actors are single, and like depending on the situation, like sometimes it's just like banter and it's just like fine, but then sometimes like you can tell they're uncomfortable and it's just like, oof, that was awkward. Anyway, moving on. So it's just like, yeah, it tones down the weirdness when the moderator gets to be like, okay, this one, like,
exactly. And I remember I was at a Grey Delisle panel, and I think with anime they're able to talk about it more because I know, like, you might think, oh, all international movies and TV shows are fine, but it depends on the distribution.
Yeah.
Because I know, I don't know if I could say the name, but Train to Busan, they can't do it on, because there's a YouTube channel called Dead Meat, and they do kill counts, and they wanted to do Train to Busan, but because of I think they were like distributed by Netflix or something.
It's a Netflix, yeah.
So they can't do it, but I think anime, they can do it. But I was at a Grey Delisle panel, and she basically went off on these different stories that she had that didn't really, well, it kind of related to some of her from her TV work, but not really. But it was just it was a funner atmosphere. And then she also, to bring it up, she talks about AI, because apparently someone used, or like took her voice and put it in, or used her voice like for AI or something, and put it in a movie, and she found out about it, and she was very upset about it. And she's just like, it's about consent. Like, if you would have asked me, I would have said yes and it would have been fine, but you didn't ask me, and you just took my voice from me. And so,
and we'll get into the AI thing deeper, because I have some notes about that too. But like, yeah, the AI voice generators are like getting scary accurate. And it's like, it's very fun. Like, it's kind of cute and wholesome when I see like people like bringing their favorite characters to life and like generating their voice to be like, here's a uplifting phone call with like X animation character that you really love. But then you're like, ooh, people could use this for some really nefarious reasons, right? To make it sound like people said things that they definitely didn't say, right?
Yeah, I listened to a few podcasts. I actually have another podcast to bring up when we go back to AI.
Okay, so just to finish up this, what was I going to say? Cons are okay. Oh, there's also exceptions, like, obviously, get ready for reality TV to make a big comeback. I know,
Naked and Afraid.
Well, we talk about reality TV quite a bit. Like, reality TV didn't go anywhere, but it's going to become very forefront for now. And also game shows. Game shows are making a big comeback, because you don't need writers for it, and you don't need paid actors for it. So NBC and Fox and all those big networks really banked on the strike being like the unions caving by now, and because they didn't, because like it's kind of silly to think that artist types don't have a backup plan for if things like this happen. Because we haven't caved yet, they're still going strong, because there's no movement, because the union wants what is fair for their people, and the corporations want to continue exploiting people. And neither one wants to budge.
Yeah. Well, I know Adam Conover, I believe his name.
Yeah.
He if you don't follow him, he gives a lot of helpful information. He was talking about how apparently there are some members of the AMPTP that want to sign like the interim agreements and like follow everything, but because it's the alliance, and so they're talking about how they're gonna like try to find separate, or work with like separate members and kind of have them break away.
Yeah, it's been really interesting to watch, because they've started doing public, I'm sorry, Spencer. They've started doing public call outs to be like straight up people just like speaking at public engagements for the strike and being like, so and so break off and make a deal with it. Like, you guys can do that. You don't, because they could do that. And I'm interested to see how long the AMPTP holds when you start to kind of get to these people who are like, maybe if we do break off from the AMPTP, maybe that'll be better for us, because at this point we're just hemorrhaging money, right? Because at that point, then people might start asking why they need the AMPTP, right? And so it's like, it's interesting to me to see how they're going to cave. And then, like, you know, we have people like Taylor Swift going directly to the studios for distribution of her Eras Tour concert movie so that she completely cuts out the middleman and the AMPTP is just not part of it. And it's just like, again, if people start wondering, like, what, if we can do this without you, why wouldn't we, right? If it's just an extra expense and and, you know, Taylor Swift's going to be making more money because there's more money. It doesn't have to be split with a third party. And so does the distribution company that's distributing it. I'm interested to see how much longer the AMPTP can hold out before they're just like, fine, you know?
Yeah, I remember hearing about that, and people are like, oh, Taylor Swift is going to single-handedly, like, destroy the AMPTP, and someone's like, please explain, and it's like, oh, she is going to do a movie about her Eras tour, and she's not going, she's doing, like, independently, and so all that money is going to go to not the AMPTP and stuff like that, and it's like, cool. And I know A24, like a month or two in was like interim agreement, so we can talk about Hereditary and that one recent movie with the arm, or Talk to Me, I think it's called.
Yeah. Also, wasn't Everything Everywhere All at Once A24?
I think so.
Yeah. So like they signed the agreement like before. I think before SAG went on strike. I could be wrong with my dates, but it was either right before or right after SAG went on strike. They signed that agreement like just into the writer's strike. They signed it pretty quickly.
Yeah, and they had no problems, and they're able to pay everybody.
Yeah, and that's well, I know that they've had some bigger hits too. They're like a medium-sized, you know, company now, but like that's what's considered like an indie company still. Right? They're much smaller than like Disney. Like Disney absolutely could pay. Like it's not about the fact that they can't, or as Bob Iger liked to put it when he flew in on a private jet making $78,000 a day to a private resort, he put it saying that, you know, they're just being unreasonable. Like I wish they just stop being unreasonable. It's like, you know what? Why don't we cut your salary, Bob Iger? Because Disney doesn't even have to cut into your salary to meet these demands, because it's actually a very small percentage of like earnings and just a very small increase on wages that they're asking for. It's not even about money, because they've been hiring, like Disney hired this crisis management, or maybe it was the whole of the AMPTP. Let me double check while I'm sitting here, but they hired like a crisis management PR firm. Like they're paying them a ton of money to try to make them look better, which good luck to those PR guys. If you ever see this, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that that's your job.
Yeah.
Good luck. We don't blame you. It's just your job. But it's some poor like intern is just like, what are you doing?
Yeah, it's just like, what do you it's like just literally just pay them, but we have to like management. They're gonna need the therapy they're gonna need probably.
Bob Iger, like Fran Drescher, president, the nanny, is
Go
the president.
Fran Drescher.
Yeah, she's the president of SAG, which a lot of people, I didn't know until this all started happening.
Agree. Same.
And I have SAG vouchers, like, and I didn't know, but like I've worked on SAG shows. But she was like, Bob Iger stepped in it so bad that you notice that none of the other like executives are giving interviews. Like you can tell that they were all going to go out and give interviews, and everybody was like, no.
Yeah, the only thing I've heard from any other CEO is the CEO of Discovery was talking about how they lost 400 million in profit and just had to pay 45 million to give the WGA and SAG what they want.
Well, yeah, because it's about power. Because if the AMPTP caves, which I believe they will, because it's not really going well for them, but it's one of those. It's one of those things where it's just like, if that happens, it sets a precedent that workers have stronger rights than corporations want them to have. It means that they set the pace for how the industry works, which is what they do not want, because there's a lot of like generational power and wealth that goes into, we have all the power, we tell you how it's going to be, and that's the way that it's always been. This is a huge shakeup, which is why they're holding out. It's really not about the money at all. They don't like having to pay more money to their workers, but it's kind of a small factor. And also, like, So let's get into two of the main issues that we're striking over, because it's not just about pay. It's about, well, it's about residuals from streaming, because writers specifically used to be able to, like, when things would be primarily on cable before streaming got big, they would get residual checks as those shows aired. And because streaming is still a relatively new concept, there's really no legal requirements for them to get paid the same way if their show goes on Netflix or Hulu, where most of us watch and where most of these shows that are winning all these awards are. So, like, for example, you could write for, I don't know, Bridgerton, big Netflix show, and then not really get paid much of anything because they only hire you for one episode and then they cut you. So not only are you not making enough money to hold you over to the next project, but also it's hurting the shows, because usually writers are supposed to be on set, usually. That's the ideal, so that they can help, like, direct, like, how things are supposed to be played out, because if you write something down, obviously, you know, you might need somebody to be like, well, I was thinking this when I wrote it. So, like, they have this kind of intention and this maybe happens, and just, like, all of those little, like, finer nuanced things. So shows are getting worse and are being made quicker and more poorly.
Shows are getting canceled.
Shows are getting canceled because they're not good enough, and writers aren't getting paid. So, like, everybody loses. Yeah. For the corporations to be like, we made this much extra percentage of money. And it's just like, so that's one of the main reasons that people are striking. That's why the WGA struck, and SAG entered in on the strike, mainly due to, you know, there's wages, there's fair working conditions, but also the big thing that I think is uniting everybody is the AI thing. Because AI is really the main, in my opinion, the main reason for all this, right? Because AI has gotten much more, not just prevalent, but the technology is rapidly expanding to the point where companies are trying to fully replace artists with AI, and it's not good. It's not working out for a number of reasons.
Yeah, and I remember I listened to a podcast called Fee Five Faux Chums with Zach Miko and Paul Gett, who I admire because they're really tall. And Zach is a model who was featured on America's Next Top Model Cycle 24, and Paul is a voice actor. And
Nice.
And Paul was talking about how in the contract he had, there was no AI clause that's like, you can't use it's where you know, you see the things where it's like, oh, you get paid for a day and we can use your image in perpetuity because of AI. And basically there was nothing saying, like, protecting the voice actors against AI, where it's like, oh, I could work for a day but then never work with them again. And he's just like, no AI clause, then no. And apparently he gets a call back that's like, everybody said no because there was no AI clause in there that's like, we won't use AI on your voice and we'll just rehire you for this. And so apparently the contracts are being rewritten and stuff like that. So it's just like, yay, united front, don't submit to AI. And apparently there was a clothing brand, or Zach was talking about this, where there's a clothing brand, I can't remember which one, and I don't want to, like, call any out, where they use they made an AI generated model.
Wow.
And in the name of inclusivity, like, oh, we can create more
diversity. They did not.
They're like, we can create more diversity by AI generated people. And they took that down real quick because people were not happy about this. And
that physically hurts me.
And I'm just like, you can't just hire more diverse people, you will make them.
Look, I'm white and grew up sheltered and have to, like, learn all of these things as an adult, or had to learn, like, different nuances as an adult. Even I know in my bones that that's the stupidest thing.
Yeah,
right?
I heard that. I'm just like, oh, they did not. And apparently they pulled it down real quick. And also shout out to Zach, Miko, and Paul Gett. I'm super tall. Have me on your podcast. Anyway. Oh, and I also wanted to mention how I think it was the WGA, where I think it was 86% of the writers in the WGA didn't qualify for healthcare because they made less than $25,000 a year.
Yeah.
So that's where residuals are important as well.
Oh, healthcare is that's a different story all in itself.
I honestly, I should just keep the dentist insurance, but I'm like, oh, I need health insurance, but universal health care, but whatever.
Yeah, universal health care. You have to make enough money for them to think your taxes are worth it, but also you can't make too much money. That was my problem. Well, the first
Oh,
time I got rejected because they said I didn't make enough money, which is interesting because I thought that's what being on government health care was all about. It's almost like people should just not have to like pay for like a basic human right of healthcare, but that's a different topic altogether.
yeah.
Anyway, oh my
Hey,
God, so I'm still stuck on this. They were AI generating people in the name of diversity.
yes, AI
Hire
generated
diverse people.
Yeah, and it just and I remember there was the judge I think in Texas that's like you can't copyright AI images either. So that's
Yeah.
a big problem too because now everyone can steal your stuff if you AI generate it. So it's just like
Yeah.
but yeah, but like instead of you have hundreds of people go to these casting calls for agencies and you have all these models and it's just like you want diversity and you make you make diverse
I've
people.
talked about this before to somewhat it's somewhat related in the way of like non-diversity in media, but I've talked about this before. I'm Portuguese. I am white, but apparently because I have like dark eyes and dark hair from the Portuguese side of my family, casting agents oftentimes want to cast me as Hispanic, even though I am not Hispanic. And I've had to specifically go in more than one time and tell some of the big casting companies, don't do that because I don't want to like take a job from a talented Hispanic person who could be doing this job and doing it more accurately because they're actually from the culture that's being represented, right? And like I've talked about the frustration of like they started doing this thing where they wouldn't stop doing that. They would just stop telling me. So I would get to set, they'd be like, "Okay, you're cast with your bicycle." Okay, cool. I get to set, they can't find me and they're like, "Oh, here you are, Hispanic with a bicycle." And I'm like, "You got to stop this. You got to stop this." Like I've been cast as a stand-in one time. I was not told beforehand, but I was cast to stand in for a person of color, which I was cast to stand in for, they didn't tell me this beforehand, an African American kid who had very dark skin. And this upset me because you cannot light. Like my big thing as a stand-in is, you know, being there to help them light efficiently for the scene, and like it's a completely different complexion. So I'm like, this actor's like lighting is gonna be like not right. And like so like I wasn't being helpful. I felt extremely bad. Like there's plenty of very talented African American stand-ins that they should have hired instead of me. And I was just like, the casting company came back and first of all they asked me, was it a good fit? Which I feel like should be their job. Second of all, I was like, no, please hire somebody that has like a better, I don't remember how I exactly put it, but I was basically just like, um, you know, the complexion was very different. Hire somebody else. And I'm just like, I hate that that is something that like, I hate the thought that I took a job, now, even though it wasn't like I didn't want to, and I was no part of making that decision. I hate that I effectively took a job from somebody who could have done the job better, right? So anyway, side story. I wanted to tell
Yeah.
that story because it
Yeah.
pisses me off to this day.
Yeah. And usually the actors aren't usually very tall, so I kind of get work. Shout out to Landon from that show I can't talk about, who's like 6'5", 6, or like, I think he's 6'3", 6'5", who I got to stand in for on
Nice.
the show that I was covering. So I'm like, yay, tall people. But yeah, that's just like, ooh. And it's like they had time. It didn't sound like it was a last minute thing where it's like, oh no, we just need someone who's the same height. It sounded like there was like they had like a few days to get this together.
Yeah, and it's just like one of those things where like it's a industry wide problem to the point where they're AI generating people of color. Where I don't know why they just act like, well, there's no people that aren't white that we can hire. We can't. What are we gonna do about it? It's just like, guys, come on. You're the
Uh,
biggest casting agency in the state. You can find somebody who's the correct fit for this character.
yeah, there are people or that are like going to your offices and signing up to be part of the casting. Like you have like profiles. You can't just be like filter find this person.
I have literally like gone in and because like Portuguese has been added as like in more and more forms. I see it being added as like an ethnicity, and like sometimes if it's there, I'll put like white Portuguese. But one of the casting agents had an online system where you could add, and on the drop down they had Portuguese. So I went in and I changed like because somebody had put Hispanic in my tag, and I'm not Hispanic, so I took it off and I put Portuguese in instead because I was like, whatever. And then later on, I went back in to check. Somebody had put Hispanic back, and I was like, what the fuck? Like, guys, like anyway, that's beside the point, but that came up. So it's just like the fact that AI is being used to further perpetuate a problem of not casting enough people of color in the industry is a huge side problem that we need to talk about.
Yeah. And also trying to use it as, oh, you just work once and then we just never use you again. And
that's another
like,
thing. Yeah. So AI gets used in several different ways. While we're talking about the way that they generate people, you might have heard that they were trying to make it so that they could just scan an extra's face and then have that and then just use it in perpetuity, which the technology isn't quite there yet to do that, but it will be.
Yeah. And if it's like, okay, for this production and this production only, and if there was some way for them to be like, every time we use you, we'll pay you for that day, but then it's just like they might be like, oh, we'll use them, but we just won't say anything, kind of thing.
Yeah, the contract that was offered to the unions was like, okay, well, one of the compromises was we can scan these people, use them in perpetuity, and only pay them for the one day. Basically, it would eliminate the need for extras, which is a problem because extra work is a big foothold for people who are just getting into the industry. So it would make the industry even more exclusive, and it would make it harder for new people to break into the industry, which is already hard enough as it is. Also, the technology isn't quite there yet, but they're really fighting for the ability to do it in the future, which is why they really don't want to cave. Because if they can't use AI to replace people in the future, they know that that's going to be an expense in the future. But like for right now, like I was talking to my neighbor about it who knows people in the industry, and he was like, there was this AI generator where they generated the background. It was like a crowd, but if you like, it looks fine if you just glance at it, but then you kind of zoom in and like you realize one guy is just a thumb with sunglasses.
Oh my god.
Because the computer doesn't know yet, but it will. But that's the scary thing is like, we're not just fighting for what's going on right now, we're fighting to set a precedent for the future so that this doesn't get abused in the future. Because I think AI is really cool and has a lot of non-nefarious purposes. I always listen to the Mr. Krabs covers of literally every song I come across. Have you not seen that?
I have not seen that.
People AI generate Mr. Krabs' voice singing different pop songs.
I wonder what Clancy Brown thinks about that.
I wonder too. I think he finds it funny, but it's just like one of those things where it's like, it's just a meme. Like nobody's making money off of this. Like it's just like, it's just like a meme. Like, wouldn't it be funny if Mr. Krabs sang "Bring Me to Life" by Evanescence? Right? They do it with Doofenshmirtz all the time, and Dan, what's his name, finds it hilarious. Like it's just like a people goofing around on the internet kind of thing. I think that's very fun. But then you have people who are like, maybe we could AI generate this to make it sound like somebody's saying stuff that they shouldn't be saying, and it's like. The internet maybe might have been a mistake.
I remember there's a voice actress by the name of Christina Vox who is, I believe Christina Vox. Oh, I'm so sorry if I got that wrong. But she voices a lot of anime characters, and apparently she posted on Twitter about how someone was using her voice and how it's not okay. And someone was like, oh, but it's for fun. It's like, no, you're using my voice without permission. I'm not okay with that. Don't do that. But people can still just be like, haha, I'm not going to listen kind of thing. And it's like, oh.
Yeah, so moving on to like voice work being used, obviously voice actors have a lot to lose by AI, them being allowed to AI generate voices, which is a big problem. But also it's just one of those things where it's like, there's obviously, what was I going to say? I just lost my train of thought. Sorry, Spencer, give me a second. It goes back to, this is what I was going to say. It goes back to the same thing with like generating extras. It's not only that you're taking work away from people, But you're also just taking away their consent, because what if you use their voice or their likeness in something that they don't consent to being a part of, right?
Oh gosh, and also side note, if you get rid of background, you get rid of the wardrobe for background, the hair and makeup for background,
A
the
lot of
catering
people
for
lose
background.
jobs,
So
yeah.
so if you're like, oh, losing background, oh, but it's like it'll be a domino effect. But I remember. But speaking of like being used for something you don't want to be used in, that just reminds me of when I was on a show and we were supposed to be protesters, but we were supposed to be protesters that hated a specific type of people, but they didn't tell us that. So I was just like, oh.
I don't know if I've told this story already. I know I've told it to you, like, privately. I don't know if I've told this story publicly yet, but there was this one show. Can I say the show? I think I can. Spencer can cut it out if he thinks it's whatever. But it was Step Up High Water.
Oh yeah, you told me about that.
Yeah. So Natasha and I were extras, and they were like, "We're doing It's a Party Scene," and we're like, "Just a party scene?" And they're like, "Yep, just a normal party scene." We get there, they send in a PA to be like, "So, trigger warning. This is Spencer will put a time code if you want to skip this particular thing," but they're like, "This is a police brutality scene, and there's going to be police beating up people of color. And we want all of the white people to be cheering for the police." And Natasha and I were like, "That is not going to happen. Absolutely not." So we stood in the back in protest, and the AD, who also didn't like what was happening, was just like, "You guys are doing a good job. Keep doing what you're doing." And we were just like, "That's not going to happen. This is not, I understand that this is like not, I know this isn't like real, but still, like, that's pretty shitty." They also did this thing where they were like, "We're not going to tell the crowd of extras that the police are coming in to run in and scream at them, because we want their natural reactions," forgetting that a lot of people have very bad experiences with the police. And one girl, like, had a panic attack and had to be sent home because, like, there's a big police dude running at you that you were not told about.
Oh gosh.
It was bad. It was not good, and I did not like it.
Yeah, I remember I was on another show and we were supposed to be handcuffed, and one of the guys was like, "Oh, I've been arrested before and this is kind of like freaking me out a little bit." And I'm just like, "Are you okay? Do you like you can tell the PAs?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm fine." And I'm just like, "Okay, are you, as long as you're okay." But it's just, yeah, so yeah, going back to, they might have us do stuff that we don't want to do, and people are going to be like, "Oh, I saw you in this movie doing this. How dare you?" And it's like, and
it's one thing if you're, I'm sorry, I cut you off. I'll let you finish.
Or it's just like separating the real person from the art and kind of thing. And so it's just like some people don't do that.
I mean, and it's all a consent thing, right? Because, like, I think from, like, on one hand, it's one thing if you're like giving somebody a character as an actor, and like they're the bad guy and they're playing that character, and that character exists to kind of be the bad guy and be like, "Don't be like that guy." That's very different from just like, I'm an extra in the background of like a MAGA protest, right? That happened to one of my friends. And then counter protesters showed up because they didn't know that it wasn't real. And the guy was like, "I'm with you, but also please stop throwing things at me. I can't help it. No one told me that this was what I was signing up for."
Please tell me there was some poor innocent PA that had to be like, "Guys,
I have
this
no
isn't
idea.
real."
I wasn't there. This is just what I heard secondhand, but it's just like, yeah, that stuff happens, and it's just like, you gotta, like, consent is a whole other issue in the film industry, also being amplified by the AI. Like, I feel like AI is not a big evil thing by itself. It's just, like my dad says, tools are only as evil as the hands of the person it's in. So it's just like amplifying corporations' ability to try to exploit people, if that makes any sense.
And I'm sure, or the ellipses just came into my brain, and I'm like, oh, if you do something like risque, they could like keep using your image for like risque things over and over again, and that's something where it's just like, ooh.
It's one of those things where it's like, if you consent to it, it's fine. But if somebody who doesn't consent to be, I don't know, having their likeness put on an AI naked body, there would be nothing stopping that from happening. And if they don't consent to it, that's a problem, you know?
Yeah, and I'm just thinking like, and it's just like also being paid for that, because sometimes people get paid more money to do that, not a lot more money, but they do. And so now it's like that image could be used in perpetuity, so it's like, oh, they need to up the rates for this if they're gonna use me for like risque stuff for in perpetuity.
Yeah.
But I'm sure studios are like, oh, their background, we don't have to pay them that much, we shouldn't have to pay them that much. And it's like, well, shoot. Pay your workers.
Yeah. And then there's the third way that AI is threatening the industry, which is with writing, which is like,
Oh yeah.
um, that's a whole other beast too, because it's like, right. The technology, can you imagine like watching like a comedy show that's written by AI?
Oh, that'd be
I
because
don't want to live in that world.
yeah, because I remember reading somewhere how the way that like I don't know if it's Chat GPT or if it's just AI in general, but the way they write it is they basically find the word, or it's like they have the words, but they use like a popular word to use after that word, like the, and like what's a popular word to use after dog? Dog. And then like, and it like that's how it does it, where it chooses like popular words to follow other words, and it's just like, this doesn't make any sense.
Well, and like it's one thing if a writer who's hired is like using a chat software to like help better flesh out characters. Like I know some writers that I'm friends with who like will create a character and then kind of create an AI for them so they can kind of talk to them and try to feel out like what that character, how that character would respond to certain situations.
Oh.
It's one thing if a writer is like, I'm hired for a job and I'm using a tool, but trying to cut out other writers, like, I don't know, it's a very weird line, and it shouldn't be in like these mainstream productions where people are generating writing or like using that to replace hiring somebody. Does that make like, it's one thing if somebody is hired and I can see them using it as like a tool. I think that would be fine. If that like, if that's like not fine for some reason, somebody tell me. But like using it to replace somebody who's actually a thinking, feeling person to do a job is weird.
Yeah, and just the or just studios just want to cut out the part that they have to pay for, kind of thing. They don't they or I remember hearing or reading somewhere where it's there are some members of the AMPTP get money if they're not putting out content or something like that, or if something
Oh,
doesn't do well, they make more money from it.
interesting.
I there's another, I believe it was from Brendan Bradley, who I follow on Instagram. I shared his videos on my page occasionally. I can't remember if it was him, Adam, or somewhere else, where there are companies that that can make more money if something either doesn't do well or if they don't put out certain content. So it's just
Yeah.
like it's a way of them getting more money, kind of thing. And it's just like, if the person you hire is using it, it's fine. But if you get rid of that person you're hiring, then you might not have that good of a product in the end. And it's just like, just yeah, it's all about money, and people are putting themselves in a position where they can succeed, even, or it's almost like the producers where they're just trying, like, if it fails we'll make so much money, kind of thing. It seems like that's what they're trying to do.
Yeah,
But
I it's just it's a big thing, and it always comes down to money. Always.
yeah, and people cutting corners, and it's just like they're clearly cutting a corner here, and it's not that great.
Well, and also like doesn't like the whole like the whole socialist idea of getting rid of like these big CEOs. When you hear $78,000 a day for Bob Iger, doesn't that's probably the best argument that you could possibly have for like, what are they doing? Like, I know that being a CEO is probably a big, important, stressful job. $78,000 a day?
Yeah, and I remember on someone posted how Naked and Afraid Last One Standing, which I hate, but but the CEO made like I think 250 million last year, and Naked and Afraid Last One Standing was like the most popular show on Discovery, but the the people working on it didn't get that much money from it, kind of thing. So you have people putting their bodies on the line to try to do this, and they're facing a lot of like physical and mental struggles, but it's just like you're not paying people. And it's just like, why does this, and it's like the CEO probably was just like, yes, and that's I don't know if any CEO is like, I work so hard, this is what I do. It's just like, well, then show what you're doing for $78,000 a day. Like, you get 3 times my life savings a day.
Right.
And I remember people are like, well, why don't you just replace CEOs with AI? Because they seem to be the most replaceable.
It's just, it's so disingenuous, right? To be like, they're being unreasonable for not being able to work for pennies on the dollar.
Yeah.
I have a private jet. Like,
yeah, when Bob Iger from the island where like Elon Musk hangs out, where after flying on your private jet and sitting on your private yacht, having the gall and audacity to say it's unreasonable, they're asking for too much. And I remember seeing something where it's like, when you see record profits, that means like they're taking that money from the workers. Like,
it's funny too, as we talk about writer, like the writer strike specifically. People mention the 2007, 2008 strike a lot, and it's because it's the most recent one, but it's also because they were also fighting new media at the time. The big new media was DVDs, DVD residuals.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah. So now it's all about streaming, right? So like when corporations act like I don't know where this is, like we've done this before. Like whenever media updates, they always try to like skirt some loophole to like give less money, and it's just like, no, you need to pay people accordingly no matter which way it's being distributed. Sorry, Hex Girls.
They're the Hex Girls. Oh, sorry, I can't say that because
I mean, I'm wearing a Hex Girl
we
shirt.
can talk about songs, and that's a song.
Yeah.
They're the Hex Girls.
It's also, well, it's Warner Brothers, but you know. Pay your writers, Warner Brothers.
Pay your writers so we can talk more about your property.
It's my favorite shirt and it's comfy. I'm sorry.
Yep. And oh gosh, I was gonna say I was gonna say something about, I think, money. And I remember reading how streaming services are upping their prices, so you'll try to get more of the ad supported stuff so that the CEO people can get money from the ads that they're using. So that's why they're upping the prices for the no ads, and they're also advertising for like past projects and nothing new because nothing is filming. And can we talk about like the rise of reality shows in 2007, 2008, and how that caused some not so or individuals that shouldn't be more famous to become more famous?
Yes. Before we get into that though, about the ads, YouTube is taking away our ability, I think starting in November, to choose where ads are or how frequently they are on our work here on YouTube. So either our choices, it used to be that you could pick where your mid-roll goes. We're now not going to have that option. So either if you want to make any money monetize, you have to just let them put like 1 million ads. And like, I know people are going to be mad at me about it, and there's nothing I can do about it. And like, use an ad blocker. I don't care. But it's just like, I get how annoying the ads are, but it's also annoying as a creator to just be like, there's nothing I can do to like make this a more reasonable amount of ads.
And isn't there something about how a video has to be like 8 minutes long for it to be monetized properly?
I think after the 8 minutes, you get to have like, you can have a beginning and end, but there's a mid-roll that only gets to happen if it's at least 8 minutes long, so it makes more money. I believe that's the case, but it's always changing, so I could be wrong. But yeah, 8 minutes is a big thing. I've edited videos for clients where they're like, can we stretch this so we can get it to 8 minutes? Like, which is very valid, right? If this is what you do for a living, like.
Yeah, I recently did some videos because, I'm trying to build up my YouTube. Please follow me on YouTube, Gabe Broadcasting.
Yay. Links down below.
Thank you. Avery's the best. I recently made some videos about Naked and Afraid castaways because I'm trying to expand, because it used to be like Digimon stuff, and now I'm like, I want more followers, and now I'm changing things, but the algorithm isn't doing things, but they end up being like 10 minutes long. I'm like, oh, nothing really happened this episode, it's gonna be great. And I'm like, how did I make this 10 minutes long? And I'm listening to it and I'm like, well, it sounds like everything I'm saying is important, but
that happens to me too. I'm just like, I don't know how this is gonna cut together, and then I'm like, it cut together.
Yeah. And there was one episode where I recently messed up on what someone was saying, but I only have so much memory on my phone. I'm like, in the caption, I'm like, actually Andrew said this, not Patrick, sorry. but
yeah, and it's like, Yeah. So anyway, reality
Yeah,
TV. In
reality TV.
2007, 2008, TV was really in dire straits. Fox was basically banking on and kept afloat by American Idol, which was very popular at the time. Um, they also late night was also funny because they didn't have writers, so they came back, but like all the late night guys are also writers, so like Conan made his whole thing like, look at how boring our show is without the writers, like pay your writers. There's a famous clip of him spinning his wedding ring on his desk and trying to go for Guinness World Record to try to fill time because they had nothing else to do.
Oh no.
It's such a funny clip. It's very Conan O'Brien. I love it. But yeah, reality TV took a fun turn.
Yeah, where basically, well, you know the show The Apprentice with Cheeto and Chief. We don't speak his name.
It's weird. Every time we try to say his name, we just kind of black out and wake up in a field somewhere.
So yeah, I can't walk back home again. My legs just can't take it.
Yeah, I can't really remember. It's all kind of a blur.
Or I'll say 45 if that helps. He was the 45th. Yeah. Cheeto and Chief were basically his show was renewed for the Celebrity Apprentice, and that's where he got a lot of recognition. And the writer's strike is the AMPTP not paying the writers is the reason why he got so popular. He's the reason why them being greedy is the reason why he became president, and all the chaos that ensued afterwards. Allegedly.
Fun times. He also allegedly ran for president. Some people believe that it was a marketing. I believe it started out as PR too, but it's really funny because apparently Apprentice got canceled and he was trying to. Well, he found out that Christina Aguilera was making more money than him on. It was either Christina Aguilera or Gwen Stefani. One of them was making more money than him on The Voice. He wanted a bigger salary, so the running theory is that he was like, oh, I'm gonna run for president, and then they'll pay me more money, and then they canceled his show because he said a bunch of racist shit right out of the gate.
And he called the deaf actress a slur, didn't he?
Yeah, he called Marley Matlin, I believe he called her the R word. Never forget that. People forget that sometimes. And never forget.
And people forget when he went on camera and imitated that reporter that one time.
Yeah. Because making fun of people with disabilities and, people who are divergent from the norm is funny too. 45.
Yep, and people are like, "What's the point of this segment?" And it's because this is what happened during the last strike. This is or someone got this platform, and you also said that the Kardashians got a bigger platform.
Got their show greenlit in 2007 and really took off. So yeah, I'm sure the Kardashians would have found their way to fame one way or another. Because they did have a lot of connections beforehand, but their show was greenlit in 2007 in the rise of reality TV before preparing for, during, and after the looming writer's strike. So there is a question of like, would the Kardashians be the Kardashians without the writer's strike? There's a very good possibility that their show doesn't take off nearly the same way without the writers. So like, this is what you're doing. You're making TV worse the more that you oppose the unions and what they're doing.
Yeah, because then people are like, let's just put a bunch of people that we're not really going to check the background of on TV and just have them go, because more drama equals higher ratings. And I have a theory that we're going to see like a surgence of a bunch of Naked and Afraid stuff because, reality TV, and it's going to be in its 16th season soon. Castaways is almost done. Last One Standing was renewed, which I despise, was renewed for season 2. I think Of Love is renewed for season 2, and that should be there at some point. And Solo might get a season 2, but I'm just like, yay, putting more people in torturous situations. Let's not save the people from torturing themselves too much, because there are some individuals who are on Castaways. There was a survivalist that was, for a week, was not really walking around, but had a fractured tibia and a torn meniscus for an entire week.
Yikes.
And tearingly had to leave the challenge because they're like, oh, I can't I can't really walk around, so I have to leave. And it's like, oh, by the way, and I think she's like still in recovery from it, and it was filmed in like March.
This wasn't like a med tap situation?
No, and I said in my review recap this should have been a med tap because for an entire week her leg was swollen, but my assumption is that she wasn't in immediate danger. It wasn't like a bacterial it wasn't like there wasn't an infection. And on Last One Standing, Stacy famously had like stomach pains for 2 days and was tapped immediately because she was partnered with Jeff, and they probably didn't want her to tap on her own. And I said, like, oh, if Rachel was Jeff's partner in Last One Standing, she would have been tapped. But I think because it was like a leg wound, there was just swelling in her leg. They're like, let's just leave her. But I'm just like,
"'Tis but a flesh wound, sir."
Yeah, and also in Last One Standing, Matt was running around with a torn calf muscle and had to go down like class 3 rapids on a raft that they had to build out of bamboo on a torn calf muscle. But I guess because only his leg was affected and it wasn't like an infection. But I'm just like, people have to have surgery, and it might cause and people are very dedicated. They're like, I'm gonna finish this challenge no matter what. And it's just like, I blame the audience because they're just like, oh, this person was lazy based on this edit. And it's just like, anyway, the strike. But I feel like we're gonna get a surge of Naked and Afraid stuff, and I'm just like, survivalists, if you're out there and you're not feeling well for multiple days, even if you're not med tap, please leave the challenge or fake a stomach ache that's really severe to get out of it, because it's not worth putting yourself through that.
Well, when did MILF Manor air? Because like
January 2023.
January. So that wasn't part of the writers being on strike, but now that the writers are on strike, can't wait for that MILF Manor season 2, guys. If this is what TLC is doing when they have the option to hire good writers, can you imagine? TLC is gonna get wild.
Oh god. Well, I mean, the John and Kate +8 podcast has come out at this point, so it's just like,
no, actually this one's gonna be, we're filming this on the 16th. We're actually gonna move this up so that it goes out on the 18th, just because it's current going on right now. The optimism in me is like, maybe if we wait, then the strike will already be over by that time. That is the optimism in me. As much as I would love that, I don't actually believe, given the current climate, that that's gonna be true. But you know, we're going to put this out. So the John and Kate episode will probably be the next one after you guys see this one. TLC show that we're all very nostalgic about. That's a lot. It's a whole lot.
Oh, gosh. I wonder if there are any updates to
Original mommy vlogger.
Oh, gosh.
And we just had an actual mommy vlogger get arrested for child abuse and neglect. That's a whole other story. That might be a whole podcast on its own. That's a terrible ongoing situation. But anyway, we keep the strike encompasses so much that we just keep going off on different things. But like, it really does encompass so much, because it's like trying to figure out what we can't talk about, right? You realize how much of our culture surrounds the movies and TV shows that we've made when you can't discuss them publicly. Yeah. And that's not like oh, poor me, I'm the one suffering the most in the strike. Obviously not, but like, it's just an interesting thing that I've noticed where it's like, it's sort of like if your internet goes out, you don't realize how much you like depend on the internet until it goes out, and you're just like, I can't do any of the things that I was planning on doing today. My whole day has now been reworked. It's like that. It's like, oh, it wiped out, like, I now have a whole new lineup. But Beyond Belief Fact or Fiction has signed the interim deal, so...
Yay.
Jonathan Frakes is not a scab.
Unlike Drew Barrymore.
That's probably a good segue. There you go. Hey guys, Avery from the future here, which I know is ironic because we're the whole time travel thing, but Avery from the future here. Update on the Drew Barrymore is bringing back her show situation. She's not anymore. She basically reversed course and was like, yep, we're not doing that. That was wrong. As well as the Jennifer Hudson show is also reversing course and not coming back until the strike is over, as well as The Talk. I believe, as of right now, when I'm making this update, the day the podcast is supposed to go out, as far as I'm seeing, The View is still doubling down and staying on air, and Bill Maher, moral paragon Bill Maher, is also staying on air. So, Direct your vitriol towards them. Don't harass them. Direct your mild ire towards them. Now that sounds not strong enough. They're the ones that I'm still, salty at. Whereas I really do think that Drew Barrymore being able to, it took her a second, but she did own her mistake. And though mistakes were made, she owned her mistake and reversed course. And I think that's admirable. I can honestly respect that. She did the right thing in the end, so, mistakes were made, but mistakes were corrected. So there's that. So anyway, continue.
Oh gosh. Well, or I remember I was trying to describe what a scab is, and I'm just like,
so scab is anybody that crosses a picket line, at least metaphorically or physically.
Yeah.
Somebody who breaks ranks and takes work while everybody else is on strike. Because obviously unions are union strong because they're unionized. So if people break ranks, then they can't, fight for equal rights and stuff. But let me look up. I'm gonna look up the Drew Barrymore apology. Comes up immediately. But this is like a mini story all in itself. Yeah, this is really disappointing. I actually very much I think everything else I've seen before about Drew Barrymore, like, she's pretty cool. Like, I like Drew Barrymore. I'm just like, Drew, come on.
Yeah. Because I believe, I remember someone made a video on Instagram where it's talking about how news broadcast shows are not a part of the strikes, and their contracts go up next year, so they're able to film still. And apparently Drew Barrymore was trying to say like, oh, we're a news broadcasting show or something like that to try to like not have to deal with criticism. But it's like, but no, you have WGA writers on your show. You can't pull that, and you're crossing picket lines and you're still continuing this show. And it's just like, but luckily Avery has a more detailed article that
yeah, so I have a Vulture article. I'm also gonna pull up hang on, let me pull up. And so here's the thing. Scabbing has been a problem since literally day one of the, like, there's always going to be people who are ready to take that opportunity, unfortunately. Famously, I remember, like, right after the SAG joined the strike, there was a TikTok influencer who got absolutely dragged because she crossed the picket line to be at the runway for Haunted Mansion premiere, which obviously none of the actors who were in that movie were there because they were supporting the union and not, scabbing. But this one random TikToker was, and she made a TikTok about going, and she was lip syncing to Fran Drescher from The Nanny, not realizing that Fran Drescher is the president of SAG, so it was like wrong on so she got dragged. It was so bad, she completely yeeted her own TikTok off, and I don't think she's come back to the internet since then. If she has, I'm not aware of it. I obviously don't follow her, but like, that was bad. There was also another TikToker who I used to really be a big fan of until there have been some other controversies, but the big one was he went by Straw Hat Goofy. He goes by Straw Hat Goofy. He basically made a TikTok talking about how he's not going to stop doing any promotions or anything while the strike is happening because he's not union, so it doesn't matter. Yeah, people were real pissed about that. So, ooh. And then I think it was a big thing. And then he tried to walk it back and like do this whole like, that's not what I meant kind of thing. And it was like, but you literally made a TikTok saying, I'm not union, so it doesn't matter. I'm going to keep doing what's the harm? Like, he basically was like, what's the harm of me getting paid to do what I do while they're striking? And it's like, ooh, yeah, bro.
Because there was some confusion when this was starting out because I didn't know about this, but you were talking about how influencers, even non-union influencers, could also, they would be scabbing too, right? If they were like promoting movies on their channels.
Yeah, so anybody, so here's the thing. The studios are not stupid. They know that like, YouTubers, TikTokers, people who have a platform, they know that to varying capacities, we all have people watching us. So just like any other brand deal, they know that like, hey, okay, if the actors are saying that they're not going to promote our films because that's going against struck work, like that's one of the ways that they're punishing them and trying to make them break and sign their contract. They're taking away that service, right? They're taking away the ability for them to promote, because if you don't know, actors, when you see them in all those interviews and red carpets, like that's not them of their own volition just being like, I really want to talk about this movie. They're contractually obligated to do so. It's a big tedious process after they make a movie where they have to go on press circuits where they do junkets and people ask them the same 10 questions over and over and over again, and they're just like all day every day for like days with like different people coming in and out. It's work. So just like any other work that they're not doing for the studio, it's work that they're not, like walking a red carpet is work. You gotta like stand there and pose for everybody's picture, and then you gotta answer everybody's stupid questions, and then you gotta go and see the movie that you've already seen 5 times, and like then there's like, it's a whole thing, right? So it's work. So if you're taking that work, even if you're not union, if you're filling that role for the studios, that tells the studios that that takes pressure off of the studios to negotiate with the strike. So you're effectively harming their cause, because they're saying you are mistreating us, we're withdrawing our service. Anybody who's coming in to fill that spot is taking the pressure away from the studios to do the right thing, if that makes sense. I hope I explained that well. But that's basically, so like, even if you're not union, don't want to be union, if you're taking promotional work from a company that is being struck because they're mistreating their workers, you're enabling them to continue doing what they're doing, right? So that was a big thing. That was a big thing on TikTok with like Straw Hat Goofy. And yeah, that was
And that's why you get Avery reacting to Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, which we both saw the promotional images for the second movie with Tigger and Owl, and we can talk about it because independent and overseas.
Well, and here's the thing, it's a very gray line, right? Because there's also this whole thing about like, well, if you're doing like a review, like a critical analysis, like an analytical perspective thing, you can talk about struck media if it's analytical. If it's truly analytical in nature and it's not a reaction, if it's not like a skit, if it's not whatever, basically what I do. I can't talk about struck media. So I've seen some issues where some YouTubers who are genuinely doing critical reactions, which is something that is allowed, get called scabs by people who just don't know. And I think they're well-intentioned, and just trying to like make sure everybody's doing the right thing, but it's just like, they're fine, right? That's not scabbing, according to the union. And every strike is going to be different because there's going to be different rules. So like, I don't fault anybody for like I made a movie about, or I made a video about Barbie the Nutcracker, which technically I don't think I can cover anymore, but it went out the day that the strike was starting. And it was before they had put out rules about influencers or YouTubers or whatever. So it's one of those things where it's like the rules are constantly changing. I'm not going to fault anybody for not knowing, because I am currently to this day like researching all the time. Like, I'm not going to fault anybody for like being like, oh, I think this one's fine, but then through some loophole during the distributor, it's also struck work. Like, I'm not going to fault anybody for that, but it's when people specifically are like, I don't care, I'm doing what I want to do, fuck you, that's the problem, like that's the problem. Like, I thought that I was going to be able to cover Doctor Who because, it's British, but there's so much American studio money tied up in it these days. I didn't know this, but Sony's been the main investor. I don't know if that's the right word. They've been heavily involved for years.
I did not know that.
In Doctor Who, funding it, distributing it, something.
Yeah.
And recently Disney has also become a huge investor too, because I think they're getting at least a big portion of the Doctor Who back catalog on Disney Plus, and they're doing like a American side Doctor Who thing allegedly. So their money is also tied up in it too. So the union had to come out and add it to the exception list of like, this is foreign, but it's it's not an AMPTP thing, but it is. You know what I mean? So it's very tricky. So it's just like you know, it's the willful dissent that I have a problem with, not so much the people trying to figure things out and scrambling and not knowing, right?
Yeah, I know on the Dead Meat YouTube channel and podcast, they Chelsea and James were talking about how they were thanking the reps because they were asking them so many questions because they're trying to figure out, hey, can we talk about this movie? Can we talk about this movie? And I know they're moving more towards like video games and web series, and I think they wanted to do Danganronpa at some point too. So it's just like just asking, it's like we don't want to scab, we just have some patience with us. We're not like
Yeah.
the willful dissent, as you were saying.
Yeah, and I had a lot of anxiety in the first couple weeks being like, what if people think I purposefully blah, blah, blah? And it's like, well, everybody knows, or hopefully knows, that, you know, I'm very pro-union, and everybody knows that I've talked openly about being like, I don't know if this counts or not. Let me do some research and try to figure it out. Or like, to the best of my ability, this is not part of struck content. So to as far as I know, this is okay. But it's just like, you work, you figure it out, and the unions have leeway with people who are genuinely trying to do the right thing. There's also like I know that like soap operas are not struck asterisk, because there's this big thing with like they don't hire, it's something with similarly to like talk shows. It's like they're not hiring, like they're hiring non-union writers, which would be a scab situation, but they have an exception because soap operas, if they go off air for a period of time, they might not ever be able to come back because all of the pull is just like the drama and being like caught up in like the storyline. And so like it's a big like they're okay, kind of. It's the last I knew, the two unions were in disagreement. Like they're okay with one but not the other. That brings us to Drew Barrymore.
Yep.
Drew Barrymore announced a few days ago that she was returning to her talk show amid the strikes, which is scabbing.
Yep. This is the shame symbol, right? Or
this is just like yeah, there's also like fault, like your faults. Yeah. It depends. It differs, like in sign language, it differs from place
I know
to
this
place.
is rude, so
yeah.
Rude. Anyway, yeah. She's crossing the picket lines, everybody. She's crossing the picket lines. Don't send hate, but judge her from afar.
Don't send hate, but you can have opinions.
Yes.
So here's the thing, because when this first happened, I was confused because she announced that she was coming back to her show, and I really want to find the quote because now she put out her like apology,
which has, I think, since been deleted.
Has it been?
I heard it was deleted.
Okay.
But you know,
it was not received well, so that would not be surprising. Yeah. Yep. Drew Barrymore deletes emotional apology video as WGA cancels anticipated showrunner meeting. So, I'm trying to find the original because it's being buried by new updates. I'm trying to find. Let's see. Is this new? This is also new. Basically, she came out and said, "Hey, I'm returning to my show." And she basically addressed that she knew that it was going to be controversial, that she was going to return to her show. And she was like, I own this decision. Like, our show is made for, like, tough times. Again, I'm paraphrasing because I cannot find the actual quote.
And weren't they trying to find a loophole with the writers or something? But it's like, no, it's not this type of show.
Yeah, so the reason I was confused initially was because when she announced that her show is coming back, people initially went, but you're not supposed to be taking work from the companies. And SAG came out and said she doesn't have a problem with us because of something, the way that talk shows are not part of the whole agreement. So SAG came out and said she's not in violation with us. However, WGA, again, separate union that's also striking, was like, we very much have a problem with this because while SAG doesn't care because talk shows aren't really part of what they're renegotiating, the WGA was writing the Drew Barrymore show. WGA writers were. So by her coming back to work, whether she hires non-union writers, whether she has no writers at all, that is still a product that should be taken away until the studio decides that they're going to pay people fairly. So again, it's one of those things about like, yeah, she's not, you know, even if I think she said, well, I'm going to improv. I'm going to like be more like, I'm not going to rely on the writers. It doesn't matter because it's still a product that it being gone puts pressure on the studios to do the right thing. And by bringing it back, that takes pressure off. So that's where the problem is. So it was a big confusing thing. I had to do research because like one union's okay with it, one is not. It's a big problem. People are very mad, justifiably, because in essence it is a problem. If one of the unions has a problem with it, it's a problem, you know?
Yeah.
So, and it's not even the same kind of gray area as like soap operas, because the writers kind of like lowercase, the last I heard with soap operas was that the writers are like, yeah, like technically like this should be off air, but like if they go off air for any significant amount of time, they might not be able to come back. And then those writers that are grandfathered into contracts for those soap operas won't have jobs. So it's kind of like, they're not okay with it, but they're looking the other way for the long run, right? It's part of that like negotiation of like having to deal with strikes and stuff like that. This is completely different because Drew Barrymore's show can be off air for a while and they won't have to worry about being canceled because it's a really popular show. I think she won an Emmy for it, didn't she? She was dropped from the National Book Awards as a host in the aftermath of this. It's worth noting that other talk shows are looking to come back. The Talk has already come back. That's exactly the same situation, but for some reason didn't get any press coverage. Let me double check my story before I accuse somebody of scabbing.
Yeah.
The Talk, because I was reading this. The Talk, daytime.
I wonder if there are like some exceptions because it's like more of a news show kind of thing.
Yeah, Writers Guild pickets The Talk. Work being done is scabbing.
Oh.
Also, Jennifer Hudson. This says Jennifer Hudson, The Talk, The View, following in Drew Barrymore's scabby footsteps 2 days ago. I'd be interested to see because The Talk is already back. I don't think The View is back yet, and I don't think Jennifer Hudson is fully back yet. I wonder if either of them will pull out. Like, I wonder if Jennifer Hudson's going to be like, I don't want to be part of that shit show. Can I not, please? I wonder if The View is going to be like, I would like to be excluded from this narrative.
Oh, so, yeah, I guess because Drew Barrymore is more famous, or just more in the public eye.
I think it's because Drew Barrymore, like she mentioned in her initial statement about it coming back that like we were launched in the middle of COVID, so like our show is meant to get people through tough times, or like something that did not negate the problem with why they were coming back. And I think Drew Barrymore just has this persona, and I think it's an authentic persona from what I can tell. Obviously, you don't know her, but like it seems to be that she's known as being just like a very down-to-earth, honest person who kind of just, you know, is very relatable, right? She's like, you know, she's just that kind of person. I think it's people didn't expect this. Like, people expect kind of like, no disrespect to the people who work on like The Talk or The View, but they have more of a reputation of just being like an institutional daytime show that doesn't have a lot of heart behind it. Like, again, I don't care, but fans of The Talk and The View don't come for me. But like, that's kind of like the perception publicly that I can see. And meanwhile, like Drew Barrymore is just this more like down to earth, likable person, and people just didn't expect it from her or whatever. Same thing with Jennifer Hudson. Also, very much has a very, you know, likable persona. So I'm interested mostly to see if she learns from Drew Barrymore's mistake and pulls out of resuming her show.
Like the AMPTP after Bob Iger gave his controversial, like,
Yep.
Oh, I'm on my yacht after flying to this private island on my private jet. It's just unreasonable if everyone else is like,
no, thank you.
Nope.
No. So that's basically so there's multiple shows that are coming back. So it's not a defense of Drew Barrymore because she's doing the wrong thing. just because other people are doing the wrong thing doesn't mean that you can also do the wrong thing. But like, there are other shows that are coming back that are not getting what I think they should also be getting the same amount of heat, and they're not getting it for whatever reason. I don't know why. But that leads us to, like you said, Drew Barrymore put out a like this article from IndieWire. I'm just reading the headline. Why Drew Barrymore and daytime TV are under fire. Basically, it's a whole thing with daytime TV because the writers are like, that's a product that you can't be doing without us, without scabbing. But Drew Barrymore posted an apology that is now taken down. Let me read a quote from the apology because I don't think I saw the video before it got taken down.
I just remember seeing, I think I could have played it, but I'm like, no, I don't want to hear this. Because I don't want to be like pulled in by her being like, I'm really sorry, and being like, is it okay? And then being like, no, it's not okay. Don't fall for this.
Yeah, it's because like, it's important to like hear people out and be fair, but also like you don't want to get manipulated. I think is
and you don't want to be like, oh, we should give an exception because if you give an exception for one person, then that leaves a hole for other people to slip in and cross that picket line.
Just take accountability for stuff. Like I think people forget that like if you do something wrong and you just genuinely say, I'm sorry, I fucked up, I won't do that again. I've learned, like, and you mean it. I think most of the time people are incredibly understanding if you actually mean it, right?
Yeah.
I think it's all the influencers that are sitting down with their dog in their gray hoodie and like crying and being like, and playing a ukulele and then being like, why is no one accepting my apology? And like, of course, there are going to be people who are just like, you did a bad thing, so I'm never going to talk about you ever again. And it's like, okay, but those people are a minority. And like, all you really have to do for the majority of people, reasonable people, to understand is just be like, I fucked up. I'm sorry. That I shouldn't have done that. And I won't do that again, right?
And maybe be like, I'm working with the WGA to find a way to like
and if it's necessary to, you know, do something to kind of do whatever you can to correct the problem. If it's, you know, if you've hurt somebody, you know, use your resources to help them instead of further harming them, like, you know, whatever the situation calls for. But like, yeah, like it's not that hard to just say you're sorry genuinely.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's when people start making excuses and like, you know, it's one thing to be like, this happened because of this, but I'm still wrong and that doesn't excuse it. And just being like, but this was out of my control, right? You know.
Yeah, during it, yeah.
Drew Barrymore this is from Hollywood Reporter. Drew Barrymore is explaining why she made the controversial decision to return her talk show to production amid the ongoing Writers Guild strike, telling critics in a now deleted video that there's, quote, nothing I can do or say in this moment to make resuming production without her picketing writers okay. Okay. In a video statement that was posted to her Instagram on Friday below, Barrymore reiterated that the previous assertion from CBS Media Ventures that the Drew Barrymore show will be returning in compliance with WGA strike rules. That's despite ongoing backlash from members of the union and the union itself picketing outside CBS Broadcast Center in New York. So I believe one of the not miscommunications, but one of the things is they're like, oh, well, we're not promoting struck work, but it's like, but you're doing the show, right? You're not fully in compliance, right? Like, YouTubers, we can be in full compliance by just not promoting struck work, not doing videos about struck work, because this is not a WGA written show, right? Like, we're not taking away a product that otherwise was dependent on the WGA. She says, I lost my place, hang on. I certainly couldn't have expected this kind of attention, the actress, producer, and talk show host says about her decision. We aren't going to break rules and we will be in compliance. I wanted to do this because, as I said, this is bigger than me and there are other people's jobs on the line. That's an interesting note because in 2007, 2008, a lot of the late night shows did come back, even though they were WGA written shows, because they argued that, you know, people's jobs, like the crew members' jobs, were at stake by not coming back, which is understandable. However, that was an okay rule in the last writer's strike. This writer's strike, it's different. They have different rules. So, like, I get you, but that's also an outdated, like, that's not anymore the policy. That's from like 15 years ago.
Yep.
And it does suck that like people are, out of work. You haven't worked in like 2 months. The only reason I'm working is because I've pivoted to working as an editor from home instead of being on set. But yeah, it sucks that people are out of work, but that is the AMPTP's fault, right? They should be the ones taking the heat for that.
Yep. This podcast is sponsored by Swagbucks. Swagbucks. Go to my community tab on my Facebook and you'll find a referral code for my Swagbucks. If you click on that, and you can make money by taking surveys, playing games, and also buying groceries.
Woo! You can also, if you are able to, there's also, I'll have to find the link. There is a fund, like a fund to help keep SAG and WGA writers who are not fabulously wealthy keep their bills paid. Basically, there's a union workers fund that people can donate to. I'll put the link down there. And
wasn't it the AMPTP where there was where they were like, oh, we'll just starve them out of their house and then they'll cave in pretty soon.
Didn't work. And that's why we're still on strike, is because I don't think they actually made any real attempts to negotiate until now, because they thought everybody would have caved. So they weren't actually doing any work to negotiate because they thought everybody would just be done by now. And the union's like, Nope. What else you got? Now they're like losing money, and their fall lineup is their summer movie blockbuster was trashed. Like, summer movie blockbuster season was pretty trashed, other than a couple of standouts, because there was no promotion for it.
And aren't they're like, right now is the time where they're supposed to making like blocks. The blocking for like what shows are going to air and like what movie, like that's this time now is,
and they don't have anything to put on those blocks, so they're scrambling.
Yeah. And what I think that I remember reading somewhere, they're supposed to go into negotiations again this Friday or next Friday.
I believe, yes. But that also just said that one of the meetings was put on hold. I'll have to go back and see which one of those was put on hold. I know, right?
Yeah.
It's bad. It's so bad. And it's like, I'm in a pretty advantaged place as far as there are people being affected much more than me. But even so, it's just like, come on, guys, please. For everybody's sake, please. I'm going to keep reading. I'm sorry, Gabe. I just look over.
Oh, gosh. Yeah. And if anyone wants to sponsor us, please, I have babies to feed. They're not even made yet. They have to be given birth at some point. There's an entire box in Avery's room.
We got to make some garland or something with them, string them up around the studio, the closet.
Yes, so please sponsor us. Walmart, please sponsor us. Clear American, peach flavored, hooray.
Quote from Drew Barrymore: I don't exactly know what to say because sometimes when things are so tough, it's hard to make decisions from that place. So all I can say is that I wanted to accept responsibility. And no, I don't have a PR machine behind this. My decision to go back to the show, I didn't want to hide behind people, she said. I won't polish this with bells and whistles and publicists and corporate rhetoric. I'll just stand out there and accept and be responsible. I think that's fair. I will give her credit for that. There's still they're still bringing the show back, which I think is the main problem still. But I will give her credit for being like, this is my fault. Barrymore removed the video from her Instagram account hours after she posted it, after receiving further criticism from the likes of Alyssa Milano, Bradley Whitford, and more. Milano told the Associated Press that it was not a great move on Barrymore's part, while Whitford took a sarcastic approach. Quote, Drew Barrymore would like you to know that undermining union solidarity and the most crucial moment of Hollywood history makes her the victim. Jesus. I love Bradley Whitford.
The name doesn't ring a bell for me.
So he was in Get Out. He was the dad. He was really scary. If you ever saw Get Out.
Oh,
he was the guy that was like, I would have voted for Obama a third time.
Oh my god.
He was also in, if you've ever seen, when he was young, he was in Adventures in Babysitting back in the 80s. He was in an episode of Monk. He's been a lot of different things. He's had his own show at one point, I think. But he's very, like, union strong. Like, I respect him a lot.
Unions, yeah.
I also think he's just an underrated actor because he's very, very talented. But anyway, yeah, that's that. It's not great. Quote, since launching live in the pandemic, I just wanted to make a show that was there for people in sensitive times, and I weighed the scales and thought if we could go on during a global pandemic and everything that the world experienced through 2020, why would this sideline us? She noted, so I want to just put one foot in front of the other and make a show that's there for people regardless of anything else that's happening in the world, because that's when I think we all need something that wants to be there, being very realistic in very realistic times. Understood, appreciate the sentiment, but that's still not the root of, like, it's not, she's like 8/10 of the way there, and she's just not getting it.
Yeah, if she somehow managed to find a way to get the term agreements, then it'd be fine. But nope, she's just scabbing and hopping the line, and it's not great. And other shows should not do it either.
No.
This shouldn't just be directed at Drew Barrymore.
No. And I think Drew Barrymore deserves the criticism. That's not, like, we're not saying give Drew Barrymore a break, but it's more like everybody should have equal criticism if everybody is doing the wrong thing, right?
Exactly.
So that's that. And that's the most recent thing that happened. I think there's more to this whole situation, but we've already been talking for like an hour and a half.
Oh yeah.
So I guess we can wrap it up here. Do we have any further thoughts that we want to leave them with?
Well, our side note, I wanted to bring up the fact that on RuPaul's Drag Race, they have acting challenges, but the reason why it doesn't like cross any lines is because it's not writers who write those scenes, it's producers, so that's why they suck so bad.
Yeah.
Anyway. Yeah.
Well, reality.
No offense to those producers.
Pretty much all reality TV is safe because nobody's writing it and nobody's acting in it, so.
Well, they're not.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. Sign us up for The Amazing Race. I'm just kidding. I don't know.
God help us all. Yeah. So get ready to see a lot more reality TV. Get ready to see a lot of game shows like back in the olden days. Game shows used to be really, really popular primetime TV.
Oh gosh, I'm just thinking of an extra who likes to talk about his experience on a game show, and I'm just like. I'll tell you after.
That's an off-camera story.
That's an off-camera.
Yeah, okay.
I think I told you before, but I don't want to name names and people will be like, hey, you were being mean to this one guy. You're canceled. I'm just like, I'm sorry.
Canceled.
Sorry.
They brought Pyramid back. Or not Pyramid, Password. You know the old show Password?
Oh, and
it's
they
back.
have to like find, or like the thing would be marshmallow and you have to be like white, fluffy, food, and the person has to guess it, right?
Yeah. I think it was filmed before the strike because I think it was Jimmy Fallon and Martin Short were the famous people on it. But it's back. It's part of the lineup. Or I don't know, maybe being on game shows is not struck work. I haven't looked into game shows yet because, quite frankly, that's I expected reality TV. Bringing back all the retro game shows, they're real desperate.
I'm sure there are a lot of people that are like, nostalgia.
Oh, the part that I saw was very funny. Like, Martin Short is funny.
I recently saw the thing where people are like, he's not funny, and people have been like defending him, and so I'm like, that's great.
No, he is so funny, though. I love Martin Short, and people are like, he's not funny. Just out of nowhere. Just to be mean. Just being like, he's trending on Twitter, not because he did anything wrong, just because people are like, oh, we don't think he's funny. Stop putting him in things. And it's just like, okay, he's had a career longer than you've been alive twice over, but whatever. He's not funny. Anyway, it was pretty good from what I saw. Like, I used to love watching game shows like that with like my grandma. I still watch some of them on like Buzzer, on like or like Cozy. But yeah, it seemed good, but I didn't see that coming, that they were going to be like, old game shows, Bringing them back. There we go.
You're welcome. The internet is out and we have to find something.
Yeah, right. The internet's gone, guys. But yeah, that's that. That's the writer's strike ongoing. Hopefully it won't be going on for too much longer, although I've seen projections saying that it could go into next year. Please, God, don't let that. People need to go back to work, guys. Like, all jokes aside, please, just pay people what they deserve. Get AI out of art. Have we learned nothing from Detroit Become Human?
And there's, I can't say it because it's probably a struck thing, but there's like a movie coming out that where one of the, I don't think I can talk about it.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, but yeah. there's a movie coming out where it's just like AI, but yeah.
Yeah. Ironic.
Exactly.
It's so ironic. Wait, Alanis Morissette is going to write a song about it. That's how ironic it is.
Yeah, but then the ironic thing is that nothing in her song is ironic.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, we can talk about songs all we want.
Anyway, that's it for this one, guys. Thank you for listening to us.
Like, comment nice things, subscribe, support the strike, don't scab.
Yep, all those things. Like, comment, subscribe, support the strike, don't scab. Put it on a t-shirt.
Follow us on YouTube and go to my community tab and follow the referral code for swag bucks and then start earning points for PayPal and other such and you can like get gift cards and stuff, but I usually go for the PayPal stuff. It's real. I've done it. I've been doing it for a long time.
It's not a scam.
It's not a scam. Scam likely, like in Dungeons and Daddies. Nothing like scam likely. Anyway.
Thank you guys for being here. We'll see you next time. I just want to go to the future when the strike is over.
We can go watch Joe's challenge again.
Woo!
Whoa! The lights are blinking.
Are they? Oh no! Hang on, we're not going anywhere.
Oh no! Yay to the
stuck.
future! Yeah.